Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
The Environment Minister says Bahamians are being worked up over a non-issue. That story coming up.
The former State Minister for the Environment says Bahamians should demand transparency over secret deals.
The DNA pushes for the Right to Information Act to be implemented in 2017. We have the details straight ahead.
West End residents hit hard by Hurricane Matthew are still recovering, and Bahamians are closely watching the 2016 U.S. presidential elections. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, as Bahamians grow more and more concerned over Chinese investment in the Bahamas, Environment and Housing Minister Kendra Dorsett says people are getting worked up over the issue when they should be looking at the facts. This as environmentalists and concerned Bahamians gear up to protest next week. Kyle Joaquin reports.
As petitions are being signed and marches organized over the government's growing relationship with the People's Republic of China, we had a brief talk with Environment Minister Kendra Dorsett today, and he said it appears as though Bahamians are being worked up over something that shouldn't really be an issue.
Everybody has a right to express their concern, but you're expressing concerns about something that does not exist and an activity that's not been approved by the government of the Bahamas.
He said it's as simple as that. Since the revelation of a $2.1 billion agri-fisheries proposal with the Chinese that would call for thousands of acres of crown land in Andros, many Bahamians have been expressing worry about the increasing level of Chinese investment in the Bahamas. And it's to the point where petitions are garnering thousands of signatures and even a protest for Black Friday. The Bahamas National Trust has also expressed concern over the proposed venture, advising the government to use caution in pursuit of the venture.
The Bahamas National Trust sent a letter to me regarding this proposal or this initiative that the ambassador has apparently been advancing. But I think the government's position on the matter is very clear.
Agriculture Minister V. Alfred Gray has denied that there is such a proposal, despite the Nassau Guardian printing the actual document last week.
If they have expressed some concerns regarding the environment for what has been discussed about fisheries, I think that Minister Gray has been very clear on the issue that there's been no approval for the matter.
And things only got more intense after it was revealed an approval for a forestry license had been given to involve the Chinese on the island of Andros. But the discussion over the past week has gotten fairly nasty, with politicians on both sides of the political divide pulling files and making accusations about their relationship with the Chinese. But with all of this now in the public domain, we asked Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell if he thinks this could in any way affect the relationship between the Bahamas with its closest ally, the USA.
I don't think there's anything that impinges upon that, no.
Reporting for our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, former State Environment Minister under the Free National Movement administration, Fenton Nemore, thinks otherwise. Speaking to our news today, he said he believes the Bahamian people have every right to be concerned about deals that were approved in secret.
The mere fact that the conditions were not met doesn't mean that they can't be met tomorrow. They have already been approved by the government, and it was approved in private and in secret. The government didn't declare it. And with a huge tract of land to be awarded to others without the Bahamian people knowing, I think is a sin. It's a political sin, and they should pay the price for it.
Nemore says Dorsett and the Progressive Liberal Party are attempting to distract the Bahamian people from the real issue, the natural resources of the Bahamas, which hold potential for generations of Bahamians. He says when it comes to agriculture and fisheries, investments ought to be made in Bahamians.
I think if we proceed with something like that, God will curse us. That's my view. It is time that the Bahamas recognizes that it begins to invest and needs to invest in its own people. We, for decades, have been of the view that we need people like the Chinese to come invest. All they will do is rape our fishing resources, which really and truly are the resources for me and my children and my grandchildren. And so I am very concerned that they would even discuss this matter.
Nemore says in other countries, people die for land, and Bahamians should not be complacent with giving up their birthright, no matter who the government of the day is.
We have a great resource in our country, and we need to use it for Bahamians. Whether it's Chinese, Americans, or whoever, it needs to be reserved for Bahamians. We are elected by the people, and it is our responsibility to give an account to them for the assets of the people. These are not government assets. These are not politicians' assets. They are Bahamian people's assets.
Well, in light of ongoing public debate over proposed deals between the government of the Bahamas and China, as well as the ongoing delay of the Freedom of Information Act, the Democratic National Alliance has completed its draft of the Right to Information Act. Our Simone Davis spoke with DNA Deputy Leader Chris Mortimer. Here's her report.
DNA Deputy Leader Chris Mortimer says the goal for the act is to guarantee Bahamians' right to information. Mortimer's comments came during a press conference at the party's headquarters this afternoon. While referencing the recent Chinese agri-fishery proposal, Mortimer asserted that the government continues to make deals with foreigners without consulting the wider public first, because there's no Freedom of Information Act in place to guarantee that Bahamians must know the details of those deals or agreements. He added that it's not a surprise that the government continuously keeps secrets from the public.
And the only revelation is that we found out. We're not surprised in any way, shape, or form that there are deals. We live in the Bahamas. We all know there are deals. Every single day there are deals. We know. You know too. So it isn't that we're not surprised. We're not surprised because when the F&M is in, they do it. When the PLP is in, they do it. And that is the reason why they have never brought the Freedom of Information Act. It's the same reason why they never brought campaign finance reform, because they want to continue to get money from whoever they could get it from.
The deputy leader said information should no longer be hidden from the public, and the DNA's draft of the Right to Information Act focuses on the following.
The objects of this act are simple. One, governmental accountability and transparency, public participation in national decision-making, and 3, the containment of corruption.
Mortimer predicted that the government may try to push the Freedom of Information Act now that the general election is months away, but he doubts that it would be effective.
They may now decide, with election next year, early part of next year, they say, well, let's bring it out now. And guess what? They'll do exactly what the F&M did. They'll pass it, right? But it'll never have an effective date, and it'll sit on the desk just like everything else. So from our standpoint, I don't think any Bahamian is surprised that deals are being done.
Reporting for our news, I'm Simone Davis.
Thanks, Simone. A prominent local environmentalist has joined the list of thousands of Bahamians who are against the government's proposed deal with China for a $2.1 billion fishing agriculture venture. President of Waterkeepers Bahamas and chairman of Save the Bays, Joseph Darville, today telling our news that a deal of that nature should be off the table, adding that the agriculture and fishing industry should be 100% Bahamian.
No, no, no. Any particular project like that, any sort of unregulated development that's going to affect our ocean, our coral reefs, our mangroves, our sea coast, even our swamps and our waterways, etc., they should be off the table.
Darville expressed frustration, noting that there is no way that Bahamian land should be given away to foreigners.
So there is no way we can justify giving away land and sea to any foreign entity in order for them to feed their people abroad. And this is no gift to the Bahamas. Let me be very clear about that. This is not a gift to the Bahamas. These people are very, very wise and sensitive to what is happening in their own country. And they now see that, hey, the Caribbean area and the Bahamas included is wide open for us to go and impose our own imperialistic mentality on them.
Darville says he does not blame Agriculture Minister V. Alfred Gray or Prime Minister Perry Christie, but he thinks it's important for Bahamians to start taking control of the land.
So for that reason alone, we need to be very adamant that we protect our ocean, we protect our resources, and for now, our present population, and of course, future generations to come. And so I'm not going to blame we Alfred Gray. I'm not even going to blame the Prime Minister. I take exception to what our governments have done historically. That is that they have not had proper regard for what is the people's, the Crown land.
Still to come on our news.
No complaints here in West End, Grand Bahama, despite weeks without power. That story coming up.
Additional resources for the Immigration Department on Abaco, and Bahamians eagerly await the outcome of the U.S. presidential elections. That's coming up when our news returns.